In 2003, Madonna's lead single stalled at number 37. Her album sold half of what its predecessor did, and she pulled her own music video off the air before most of the world had seen it.
You sorry you didn't release it then, given what's happened since?
No.
It wasn't the right time.
No, it wasn't. America was too polarized. There was a lynch mob mentality that was going on. I have children to protect, and I just didn't think it was the right time.
The press called her out of touch. The industry, more quietly, called her finished, a legacy act in her mid-40s, done at the center of pop. 2 years later, she had the #1 album in 40 countries, the #1 single in 41, a Guinness World Record, and the highest grossing tour a female artist had ever staged. That album was Confessions on a Dance Floor, and 2 weeks ago, its sequel went to #1, Madonna's 10th, which is exactly why the original needs telling properly, because Confessions 2 only makes sense once you know what the first one was for. This album has been remembered, it hasn't been understood. Until now. 2 things in this story you haven't heard told right. A hand-delivered letter to Stockholm, to 2 men who say no to everyone, and a comeback single that was never meant to exist, written for a film that collapsed. This is how one record resurrected Madonna. Let's go. The Reinvention Tour in 2004 grossed $125 million, the biggest tour of that year. So the road never left her. Radio did. She could sell out arenas playing the past, but she apparently couldn't land a hit in the present, in a chart that now belonged to Gwen, Solo, to Kelly Clarkson's Imperial run, to a teenager from Barbados about to arrive. That's the gap Confessions was built to close. Not the money, the relevance. And to close it, she made the last hire anyone expected. The producer she chose tells you everything about the bet she made. Stuart Price wasn't a hitmaker with a Rolodex. He was her touring keyboardist and musical director, the man who'd rebuilt her catalog night after night on the Drowned World and Reinvention tours, and who moonlighted as a dance producer under names like Le Rhythm Digital and Jacques Leconte.
Not Jacques Leconte, Le Rhythm Digitalis.
And a lot of this album wasn't made in some flagship studio. It was made in Price's home setup in London, working fast, working loose, with Madonna sometimes recording vocals in basically what was a flat. Look at what she actually did there. After the most bruising commercial failure of her career, she didn't hire the hot American producer of the moment. She promoted from inside her own touring family and made a dance record in a spare room. The creative brief, as Madonna and Price described it, had 2 rules. No ballads, no politics.
When I made my record, before I shot the video, I decided that Saturday Night Fever and John Travolta were my muse. So that's the starting point. And then from there, I spin out. So every time I do something, I find, like with my music album, I decided the whole country and western thing.
Yeah.
The cowboy was my muse. And I try to deconstruct it in a postmodernist sort of way.
The album would play as one continuous DJ mixed set. Every track beat matched into the next, the way a night at a club actually moves. In the download era, when the industry was tearing albums into 99-cent pieces, she built a record you couldn't cleanly take apart. And let's get this right, because Madonna Chases Dance trend is wrong. This was Madonna going home. Before the fame, she was a danceteria kid, a downtown New York club rat whose first single was played to a dance floor before it was ever played on radio. Confessions wasn't a costume. It was a return to the one room where she'd never been out of place. The politics, the folk guitars, the American self-examination, all of it stripped away down to the thing she'd been better at than anyone alive since 1982, making people dance. Now, the letter. The album's lead single was built around an instrumental hook from ABBA's Gimme 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 A Man After Midnight. Benny Andersson and Björn Ulvaeus simply don't clear samples. Their catalog is one of the most protected in pop, and at that point they'd said yes to almost nobody. The Fugees were a famous exception.
with the pigskin cases. Now we perfect slang like again the street masons.
Everyone else got a no. So Madonna didn't send lawyers. She sent an emissary to Stockholm carrying the track and a personal letter telling two men she'd worshipped since childhood how much their music meant to her and what she wanted to build on it. Björn later said that within half a mile of hearing it, he knew it was brilliant, and that the record proved ABBA was part of the DNA of modern pop. They said yes, one of the only times they ever have. Put that beside where she was in 2004, the biggest star of her generation, coming off one of her biggest flops, writing to her heroes and asking for permission on paper in her own hand. And don't read the letter as sentiment. Guy Oseary, her manager, says she didn't look backwards.
She doesn't sit well on her past. She's not high-fiving herself. She's not really oh my God, I've done all these. She just keeps it moving forward, defies all the odds, and fights the fight. It is not easy. It's not just like, it's not that she's maintained or stayed around. It's actually that she's had to fight her way through it a lot. She's breaking ground for a lot of other people who are coming behind her, who can say, oh, well, Madonna's done it, I can do it. But it is no easy feat. There's a lot of bullshit to deal with.
She doesn't analyze the past or celebrate it. She just keeps moving. The letter was that in practice, the record needed the sample needed the ask. So she made the ask and kept moving. And the other thing from the top of this video, Hung Up wasn't even written for this album. It started out as a song for a film musical Luc Besson was developing, a project that fell apart. The track that would go on to be #1 in 41 countries was pulled out of the wreckage of a dead film. The biggest comeback single of the decade was, at one point, a homeless song. If this kind of receipt is why you're here, the subscribe button is right there. This channel runs on exactly this. Back to the record. Hung Up arrived on October 17, 2005, and within weeks, it was clear this wasn't just a hit. #1 in 41 countries, a Guinness World Record at the time, her 36th top 10 hit on the Hot 100, tying Elvis Presley's record, the most successful dance song of its decade in America. Millions of copies sold worldwide, and unusually for a 2005 single, it kept growing through the download era rather than fading. Then, the album that November, #1 in around 40 countries. In February 2007, it took the Grammy for Best Electronic Dance Album. For a record made partly in a London flat by her keyboard player built on a sample almost nobody ever gets. The singles run after Hung Up shows you why the seamless mix format was the point and not a gimmick. Sorry, the second single, a UK #1, is the coldest kiss-off she'd recorded in a decade. Multilingual apologies dissolving into a bass line that doesn't accept any of them. Get Together says the whole album's idea out loud. The dance floor as the place where strangers become something else. Jump closes the run as pure forward motion, self-reliance at 120 beats per minute. And between the singles, the connective tissue does real work. Future Lovers opening the second side of the night like a door into a darker room. Isaac and Let It Will Be, letting the spiritual side of the Ray of Light era back in, but this time through the body instead of the mind. And the continuous mix wasn't just an artistic choice, it was a commercial one. In 2005, the album was dying as a format because iTunes had taught everyone to buy the single and skip the rest. Confessions made you take the whole record or nothing. You could buy Hung Up alone, but you'd be buying a track with its entrance and exit ramps sawn off. It was a quietly stubborn defense of the album at the exact moment the industry was giving up on it. But the resurrection wasn't finished until The Road confirmed it. The Confessions tour ran through the summer of 2006 and grossed around $195 million at the time, the highest grossing tour ever staged by a female artist. And this is what separates Confessions from just a hit album. A hit single is a moment. A hit album is a season. A global #1 and an album of top 40 charts, a Grammy, and the biggest female tour in history. That's not a comeback single. That's the whole empire rebuilt. every part of it won back inside 18 months. In 2003, Madonna was a cautionary tale, but by the end of 2006, she was, by the numbers, the biggest artist in the world again. Confessions didn't just fix Madonna's career, it wrote the playbook that legacy pop has run ever since. The move, when the culture writes you off, go back to the dance floor, is now so standard that we forget somebody had to invent it first. Kylie had sketched the shape with Light Years and Fever. Confessions ran it at the biggest possible scale and made it canon. You can draw a straight line from this record to every disco revival comeback that followed. The dance floor return as a career defibrillator is now the most reliable move in pop, and this is the album that proved it works. When a legacy artist announces a return to the club, they're quoting Confessions, whether they know it or not. Which brings us to right now, because Madonna just ran the play against her own record. Confessions 2 arrived on July 3rd, Stuart Price back at the desk 20 years on, and it went straight to #1 in America. Her 10th, her best sales week in over a decade, her biggest streaming week ever, a sequel at 67, debuting bigger than anything she put out since the 2000s. The original wasn't a fluke, but does the sequel honor the original or borrow its glow? Is it really her best album since 2005 or since further back than that? I'm not answering that here because I already have. The full track-by-track review is live on my channel right now. It's linked below in the descriptions and on the end screen. The two records are one story, and you've just heard the first half. So the verdict on the original, and I'll be direct. Confessions on a Dance Floor is the most complete commercial resurrection in pop history. Nobody has fallen that visibly and returned that totally at that age before or since. It belongs in the late era canon alongside Ray of Light. Ray of Light is the deeper, more personal record. Confessions is the more precision engineered one. There isn't a wasted minute on it. Which one takes the crown is a fight for the comments. Which one are you choosing? Confessions on a Dance Floor or Ray of Light? Or, wildcard, Confessions 2. And once you've voted, the Confessions 2 review is right there on the screen. Go and find out whether the sequel earns its name. Confessions on a Dance Floor. That's what made it. That's what it cost. You just had to be there.